All right. Okay. So here's a little bit about myself. I am born and raised in Chicago, and here's Chicago on my map here. And I moved to Calgary after getting married last summer, which is where my husband is from. So it was a big move, and have been loving it here in Calgary ever since. I'm a high school English teacher. I love literature and reading. I've put a picture here of one of my favorite books by this famous Russian author named Dostoevsky. I am always trying to be reading something and keeping my brain active and finding new books and literature that I love. I have one sister and a brother, and that you can see them here in the top picture. Here's a picture from my wedding right next to that. Me and my husband, we love music and we love to sing. Sometimes he'll play guitar while I sing, and we love to bond in that way. So here's a picture of him playing guitar. I also have one nephew and one niece, and they are pictured here in the bottom left corner. And I love video calling them and seeing them every single day, keeping in touch with them. I also love to do fitness related things with my husband. So here's a picture of us when we did a pretty intense hike. So we were at the top of a mountain, and it was really a cool experience. I have never been that high up in my life before. And yeah, we met through, a Cana event called KYA in Mexico, which is this picture up at the top right. So who knows, maybe even your guys' future spouses could be here at this Kanana event. You never know. That's how a lot of Kanana people meet, is through Kanana events, right? And yeah, I am a wedding enthusiast. I love attending weddings, and I think it's a very beautiful sacrament. Here's a picture of me and my brother at my sister's wedding, and I'm excited to talk with you guys about Kananaya weddings. So let's go ahead and get started. Whoops. Okay, here we go. So what is the first thing you think about when you think of a Kananaya wedding? Go ahead and head to this link, menti.com, and you are going to enter the code, which is right here. And let me know if anyone has any concerns, but it should be pretty straightforward. So our code is up here. And I already did just a few responses. You can ignore those. Those are not supposed to make sense. I was just testing it out. And you can write 2 responses, and once you enter it, you are good to go. And make sure everyone is writing 2 responses before they submit.
Excuse me?
Yep.
Is this the 6th grade plus breakout room?
Yep, you're in the right place. So here's our direction right at the top. You can get to this website and entering the code, and you're gonna.
No, I was just asking. No, I was here before. I was just
okay. Yep, you're in the right place. All right, we've got some good answers, good responses coming in. And we will stop it in about 1 more minute. Okay, all right. So looks like the biggest things that we have is food, songs is the biggest one. So the words are bigger based on who wrote that same response, or the most number of people who wrote that response. So it looks like a lot of people said nada, a lot of people said songs, food, dancing, and these are all awesome responses. So today we're actually even going to go deeper into the traditions beyond just the dancing and the singing and the food, and we're going to go into the actual traditions and the actual cultural history of the wedding tradition. So thank you guys so much for doing that. You can go ahead and exit out of that. I am going to screenshot this because I like all of your responses and I want to share them. Okay, so now we are going back into our presentation. I just wanted to get an idea of what you guys were what tips do you think about the big picture? Here is basically the overview of what the order is of that leads up to a Kananaya wedding. So here is the order of events. First, we have the engagement ceremony or the otigelyanam, and then it leads up to eventually the Mailanji and Chandam Chaurta, usually the night before the wedding, and then the actual wedding day. So we're going to focus on these three big events as the events that are really specific to Kananaya weddings. All right, I've just broken it down in a simple term for you guys. So let's start with our first point, the engagement ceremony or otigelyanam. So the biggest thing I want to point out with you guys is that all of these traditions and events that we do all have a purpose and a meaning. So none of them are done simply because it's a tradition, but instead we do it because the tradition carries value and importance. So here's the purpose of an engagement ceremony. It is a public expression of the commitment and willingness of the bride and groom to get married. So in front of their family, friends, the parishioners, they are openly agreeing in a public setting to say that, yes, I'm in agreement with this wedding and I want to marry this person, and nobody's forcing me to do this. This is of my own will. So this is important, right? Because you are you're allowing for an official engagement to take place, which is also, sometimes it's called a betrothal, which basically just means an engagement as well, and it's typically done at the groom's parish. So traditionally that's the way it's done, and the rings are also blessed here, which it's not written here, but this is also where the priest takes the rings and blesses them. So the Kananaya traditions of this event: the witnesses publicly agree to the bride and groom's marriage commitment. So you can see in this first picture at the top, if you look closely, these are the two witnesses, one uncle from the groom's side and an uncle from the bride's side. And they are shaking hands to publicly show that they are witnessing this agreement and that they are also in agreement with the bride and groom's decision. There is also the lighting of the velaka or lamp, which is a symbol of God's presence and the unity of the couple, right? Because they light the same part of the lamp together. They don't each light their own individual candle on the lamp. They do it together to show their unity. And another part of the engagement ceremony is the koritora. So this is when the bride and the groom's maternal uncles share a chicken amongst themselves. So you can see that here in the bottom picture. See how they're up on stage and they are feeding each other. And it's really just showing a welcoming of both families, accepting each other's family as officially being family from that moment or from that day onwards. So it really does not happen only at the wedding day. Even before the wedding day, both the bride and groom start to accept each other's families as their own. All right. After the Otilyanam or engagement, eventually there is the Mailanji reel or, whoops, and the Chandam Chart. So again, like I said, all of the traditions have a purpose. And the purpose of the Mailanji and the Chandam Chart is for the beautification of the bride and groom, to prepare them right before their big day and get them ready and beautify them, make them beautiful for the most important day of their life. So you can see here in the top picture, the girl is having her aunt is doing her Mailanji on the stage. There's she's sitting on a wooden stool over a mat with a white cloth over the wooden stool, and that's all part of the Kananaya traditions. And you can see that for the men, they have the ceremonial shave. So here's a picture of my husband in the bottom right corner from his Chandam Chart, having his ceremonial shave, getting ready before our wedding day. There's also Margam Gully performances, which remember Maria talked about last week, and she mentioned how the Margam Gully songs talk about the whole Kananaya history and how Margam means the way. So in that Margam Gully, we're remembering our past and our ancestors and the history of the Kananaya people through the song meaning, right? So Mailanjis are a great place for Margam Gully to take place. There's also the feeding of bachor, which is the cooked rice in coconut milk, and the gifting of gold ornaments to the bride or groom on their day. So if you look at the way the aunt or uncle is feeding the bride the bachor in this bottom picture, and how there's a specific way it has to be done. He's holding his elbow, and it's really just showing a sign of respect, right? Because now the bride and groom are no longer children, but now they're fully becoming adults who are getting married. And so they're treated really with a lot of respect. And traditionally, nowadays we might see Mailanjis and Chandam Charthis done together, maybe just for convenience if the bride and groom are in the same town or city. But traditionally, it's done separately. The bride has hers at her house, and the groom's is at his house the night before the wedding, and sometimes even the morning of the day, if we're really looking at the traditional way it was done. And so it's amazing, right, that we still carry on this tradition, even though times have changed so much, and maybe we're not able to just do it in our house like in the olden times. We're still able to do it in a hall, but the actual tradition itself doesn't change, and we maintain it and keep the honesty and the integrity of it. All right. Eventually, we have the big day, the wedding ceremony, and some of the key moments of the wedding ceremony are the talikettu and the mandragori. So if you look at this first picture on the left, it shows you the groom tying the tali on the wife, and underneath that you have a closer up zoomed in picture of what exactly does the tali part look like. So the yarn is 7 yarns taken from the mandragori to tie the tali, and this represents the 7 sacraments. I think this is so interesting, right? Because everything has a symbolic and a meaning beyond just what we see with our eyes. There's actually a deeper meaning there, right? That those 7 yarns are taken from mandragori. It represents the sacraments. And then the cross here on the tali obviously is a symbol of Jesus and Christianity. And when the guy ties the knot, it symbolizes the stability of their marriage. And it really is declaring that, hey, from this moment onwards, we are tied together for life. And it is just securing and finalizing that decision that they made to get married. And something interesting, I think Maria mentioned this last week, is that this tali is supposed to be worn until the very last day of a person's life. So women are actually buried with their tali malas on them after their death. And yeah, it's a pretty serious thing. It's not just a gift like, hey, here's a bracelet, I got this for you. It actually is a lot more meaningful than that. And on the right side, we can look here at this mandragori. I don't have the picture of the tray it was on, but we have the rosaries, the rings, and then the thali on top of the mandragori. So let's talk about that. This is the wedding sari gifted to the bride by the groom's family. That itself is important because it's one thing if you just went and bought your own mandragori. Anybody can do that. But when it's gifted to you by your husband's family, it carries even more significance, and it is blessed by the priest. And as you can see here in this bottom right picture from our wedding, and all Cananea weddings, it's used to cover the bride's head during the ceremony as a symbol of the groom's promise to honor and protect the bride for the rest of their lives. Whoops. Why is my slide jumping ahead, guys? Okay, here we go. We're back. So it's used to symbolize that he will protect and honor the bride for the rest of their lives. And considering that the groom's family is the one that bought this for the bride, it also shows that, hey, we are accepting you as the bride into our new family, into our family. And this mandragori, similar to the tali, is kept all the way until the very last day of your life. And women are even dressed in this mandragori a lot of times for their funeral or when they die. And so again, this carries a lot of significance to it too. It's not just any type of wedding gift that anybody can come to your wedding and give you. It carries a lot more meaning and history and religious worth to it as well, because of the symbolic meaning of the whole thread and the sacraments, which we talked about earlier. Now, I actually never knew that this is why the bride or the groom puts the mandragori over the bride's head until my sister's wedding. And that's when I learned, wow, that it has a really beautiful meaning to it. And before that, I just thought, oh, that's just what they do. It's just a tradition. But it does have that purpose and meaning to it. All right, so another major part of the Cananea wedding is the ending song, Baru Mariam. So a lot of people know this is when the mass is over because this is the song that they will hear. And this is an ancient Syriac song sung by the priest at the end of the ceremony to bless the couple in the name of Jesus. So Baru Mariam actually literally means son of Mary. So here is the chorus translation of the song: the son of Mary, the son of Mary, the son of God, whom Mary brought forth. So sometimes people might misinterpret it and think that it's only a focus on Mother Mary, it's a Mother Mary song, but actually it is it's a song about Jesus, and the whole song really sings about his life and his works and his ministry from his birth all the way to the death and resurrection of Jesus is what that song sings about in all of the verses. We might not know that because it's not in the language we speak today, right? It's in the ancient Syriac language, but it's important for us to know what's happening and to understand that this song is showering blessings on us on our wedding day, which you need to start a new chapter of your married life together. All right. We also have the Naravili right here. I've written down here, it is a cheer for the newlyweds, and it shows the Cananea spirit and pride. which we know it's not something that's shy and quiet, right? People jump in, get in there, and they're loud and they're very prideful. And it's done 3 times by the uncles and male cousins of the bride and the groom outside of the church, outside of the reception hall, and inside of the reception hall. So you can see this picture on the left here of from our wedding with the Naravili outside of the St. Mary's Canaanite Church in Chicago from last summer. And it's just a very joyous moment. You can see we're smiling, everyone is really into it. And it's something that really makes it feel like this is a Canaanite wedding. And some of you wrote that in that opener, in the opener word cloud that we created. I saw a lot of people wrote Nara as well. All right, so we leave the church and then we are at the wedding reception. Here are some of the key Canaanite traditions at the wedding reception. So the first one we have here is the Nellum Nirum Vekkel. So the groom's mother blesses the newlyweds. She takes a palm leaf dipped in holy water with 7 grains of rice or more than 7 grains of rice, and she dips it in the holy water and makes the sign of the cross on their forehead. We are going to watch a short video to see what does this actually look like, because sometimes we can attend a Canaanite wedding and there might just be so much going on and so many people and so much happening that it's really easy to not really see this or to not really know what's happening. So we're going to watch this short video. Let me know if you cannot hear it. Can anyone not hear it? Can you guys hear it?
സ്വാഗതം നേരുന്നതായ ഈ ചടങ്ങില് ഒരു തോല വെള്ളത്തിൽ 3 പ്രാവശ്യം നെറ്റിയിൽ കുച്ചടയാളം വരയ്ക്കുകയാണ് ചെയ്യുക. പുരുഷന്റെ അടയാള നാമത്തില് അവരെ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്നാണ് അർത്ഥം.
Okay, so this is done as you see in the video. Traditionally, it's done at the groom's house after the church ceremony is over and the bride is entering the groom's house for the first time. So nowadays, we might not be able to do it at the groom's house. Let's say if the wedding is in the girl's town, like how my wedding was, it was in Chicago, not where my husband is from. So we have to adapt it and do it based on the circumstances, but the tradition itself, we do not change and it stays exactly the same. And really the beauty in this tradition is that even though yes, they are definitely making the sign of the cross and blessing the couple for their start of their new life together, but the rice and the holy water, all of that symbolizes fertility and purification. So every single thing has a meaning, and it's important to always keep in mind that nothing is random and nothing is randomly chosen. It's not any old random water or any old leaf that you can make a cross with, right? Everything is very specific and intentional. Then we have the Velukugatikal. So up here in the top right, you see, here's from our wedding, my husband and I lighting the lamp. And this is a symbol of the bride and groom and their commitment to bring the light of God into their marriage, but also into the world through their children, their future children and their families. So it is really symbolic because when we have such a major life decision and a major life change, we want to do it with God's presence there. And so that is what the lamp symbolizes. We then have the Varupuritam. So this is the bottom left corner here that we're looking at. The bride's mother blesses the newlyweds by placing her hands crosswise over their heads after asking 3 times for permission. So you can see her hands are actually making the shape of a cross. And this is a benediction, really. And what a benediction means, it is something that utters or bestows a blessing onto someone else. Typically, it's done at, there are benedictions at the end of a ceremony, like a church ceremony. But this is also really, that's what it is the mother giving her blessing over the new couple and praying over them to have a happy and long married life. And we're going to look a little deeper at that in a second. Then we have the Palum Paravum Kodukal. So the bride and the groom, you can see in the bottom right picture, they both drink milk from the same cup. And that is to symbolize that they are no longer 2 individual different people, but they are the same and they are united as one person as they drink through the same cup. And the sweet milk is also mixed with fruit, which is why it's called palum paravum, also like a banana, right? And so it's given basically to symbolize the sweetness of their new married life. And milk is meant to symbolize nourishment, right? Milk is very nourishing. So that is the first thing that the couple has to eat or drink right after their actual marriage sacrament in the church. So again, even that is very symbolic and meaningful, and it's not random at all in any way. It could have been any drink. Maybe you're thinking, well, why can't I have Mountain Dew? But no, it has to be this specific way, and these are the reasons for it. Okay. Now we're going to look a little closer at the Varupuritam song. So this is a song that I think is so beautiful and actually gets me so emotional when I think about my wedding day and that moment with my mom blessing us. And I never really knew the lyrics and the meaning of it until I looked deeper into it. So we're going to listen to just the first few lines and look at the lyrics and the translation of the meaning of what it means. Because if we, like I said, we can attend so many Canaan weddings and never really know what it means or why are they doing this. So it's important for us to understand why it's happening. What do the words mean? So we're going to go ahead and listen to the beginning of this song. Okay, so I'm sure you guys have heard this song before, right? Can I get a hands up if you guys have heard this before? Few people. Okay, good, great. So let's look at the lyrics meaning in blue, which is written here. Let thine be the blessed life. With thy husband and children, let thee live for long. earth and all its fruits were granted to thee and to thy children to share. So wow, it is so beautiful, right? The meaning of this song. And those are just the first few lines only. And if I didn't even know this was a Kananaya song, I would think this has to be some sort of poem written years ago, right? Because it's so beautiful, the way that the mother and the song is wishing really nothing but the absolute best upon this couple, and beyond just wishing, but it's praying for this blessing for the couple to live a long happy married life with their children, and especially this part, earth and all its fruits were granted to thee and to thy children to share. It is just so deep and beautiful. So I am glad we got to look at that. We're gonna move on. All right, so we also have some more wedding reception traditions continued. We have then the Kacha Tarugal. So we finished the Palim Paravum, the bride and groom drink the sweetness of their new married life. Then we have Kacha Tarugal. So the groom's father gifts the bride's family with clothing, and Kacha literally means 20 yards of cloth. So this is a biblical reference to Abraham gifting Isaac's betrothed with garments and articles of gold and silver. So Abraham is gifting his daughter-in-law these things in the Bible, and we as Catholics, we're remembering that, and we're continuing that in our own way. So you can see that in the first picture here, is our uncle gifting us with the clothing, and it's again done in a very respectful way. So both your hands are out, you don't just grab it with one hand, and they are doing it in a very respectful way with both their hands as well, right? And they and so you can see that in the top left picture. Then there's also the mala ideal. So the mothers, so both the mothers, the bride's mother and the groom's mother, gives the couple the present with a gold chain, and this is to welcome them into the family. So you can see here in the top right, my mother-in-law is putting a gold mala over my head, and we also see the gifting of gold ornaments at the Mailanji ideal after the giving of Pachor. That's also done then. So you're really showing that I'm giving you something valuable because I love you and I'm embracing you as my own daughter. Then we have, towards the end of all the Knanay traditions, we have a couple more at the reception. We have the Koritora, which, where else did we hear of this? We heard of this. Where else do we do this? Does anyone remember? You can write it in the chat or say it out loud. Yeah, at Dotilianam, this is done as well. So again, the exchange of the chicken between the maternal uncles of the groom to the maternal uncles of the bride. And this is signifying the official welcome and the start of the dinner. And then you can see they share it amongst themselves. They shared it with the bride and groom. And finally, we have the Varipogala. So I don't have a picture of that, but to understand kind of where it comes from, we have to think back to olden times, right? People would be traveling from far away to come to a Knanaya wedding and to attend, not people, but really family members, right? And so at the end, this is a parting gift from the groom's side to the bride's side, right? Because the wedding is done by the groom traditionally. And so the groom side is giving the bride's side a gift for them on their way back, because it's going to be a long journey after the wedding for them to get to their trip back home. So in olden times, this could have been something like chewing tobacco for their way back. And even though nowadays we have cars, we can get places pretty quickly and efficiently, we don't need to have this long journey on our way back home. You might still have a long journey if you're flying to another town or country, but we still keep this tradition and we still remember it, and we still do it in maybe even in different ways. So there is that. And finally, we will talk about endogamy. So here is our actual definition itself of endogamy, which I know you guys have heard of in your past weeks, and I just want to reiterate the importance of it. So the definition: the practice of marrying within a specific social, religious, or ethnic group and rejecting those from other groups as unsuitable for marriage. So this does not mean that you're not allowed to have any Cananea friends, or you can't interact with any Cananea people. It just, or any non-Cananea people. It just means that when it comes to marriage, people who are not part of that same Cananea community group are considered unsuitable for marriage. And why do we practice this, or why does this exist? We should definitely ask ourselves that. And like I said throughout my whole talk today, that there is a purpose and there is an importance to it. So which is right here. It allows the Cananea culture to survive and sustain itself over a long period of time. And it preserves our Cananea culture for future generations. So let's think about that for a second. If your grandparents, your parents, and your great ancestors never practiced endogamy, would we still be here today? What do you guys think?
No.
Right, Alan, none of us would be here today, because the Cananea culture would have just kind of disappeared and disintegrated and melted into other cultures if our parents and our ancestors never practiced endogamy. That's the reason why today we still have a Cananea culture. And so we have to remember that this is not something that only Cananea people do, but other cultures do this as well. So for example, Amish cultures and Mormon cultures and Jewish cultures, they also practice endogamy in their own way, where they marry within their own communities as well, for the purpose of keeping up their own traditions and their culture, and to keep their culture alive. So this is not something that only Cananea people do, but if we want to keep the Cananea tradition, we have to stick within the Cananea community. That is the only way. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world as well. Maybe some people think, well, I don't have any Cananea people near me. I can't marry a Cananea person. There's no one here. But there's always a way. Even my husband, who was in Canada, didn't have a lot of Cananea people in Canada, but he still found me somehow, right? So there's always a way. There's always Cananea events for people to meet and know about other Cananea people in the community, to ultimately, eventually get married. So don't feel like you are ever limited because of where you are in the world. There's always a way, especially with technology and all the resources we have today. All right, so I am finally going to talk about some key takeaways that I hope you guys have kind of thought of and got in your minds from the past almost 40-ish minutes. So number one, Cananea wedding customs and traditions are extremely unique and different from other Christian ceremonies. So there's no other type of wedding you can attend where you will see all of the Cananea traditions, like a Varupiratham and the Varumariam song and the Kachatargal. All of those are only and uniquely, exclusively Cananea traditions. Number two, Cananea wedding customs allocate, meaning they assign certain roles to specific members in the family. For example, the Varupiratham has to be done by the maternal figure. Not just anybody, any wedding guest can just run up to the stage and go do it. There's a certain person that has that responsibility. And even with the Nelunniru Vekil, for example, the groom's sister is the one that's supposed to be holding the holy water with the rice grains, and she is also the one who's supposed to be bringing the mandragori into the church, and she's the one that's supposed to be leading the groom out in the morning with a lamp as they leave their house and head toward the church. So every person has a specific role assigned to them, which really shows how unique and purposeful the Kananea traditions are. Next, every Kananea wedding tradition has symbolic meaning and history attributed to it. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me say that now for the 5,000th time, but we do need to remember that none of these traditions are done randomly or just for fun, but instead they're done because it has that symbolic meaning to it. And finally, the biggest thing that I hope you guys take away is that by partaking in Kananea weddings and committing to marry within the Kananea community, we maintain the integrity of our Kananea identity. So I hope that you guys have all at least gotten one thing from this presentation, and I thank you guys all for your time, and I'm so glad I got to join and speak with you.